190 Vision, your daily training. Question.
Daily?
Okay.
Keep going. No, don't stop. Let's go. That's a blooper. Keep going.
Okay. Is there a difference in being religious versus being spiritual? If you're interested, continue watching.
Every day.
Every day.
Daily,
Watch a new video every day. Being religious, to me, this is me, that means that an individual is following a set doctrine and traditions and cultures of a group of individuals who put together a religion based on a certain prophet or leader in history.
How about if you give an example?
Example?
I'm the type of
Buddhism.
person. No, I'm the type of person. You don't know much about Buddhism. Don't talk about Buddhism.
Okay, fine.
You might be giving like wrong information out there.
I would give what I know.
But that's the point, right? Talk about what we know about. That we know for sure, and we won't be giving wrong information.
Christianity.
So hold on. Not even Christianity, because it's different for each Christian faith. We know about Catholicism.
Yes, that's
So let's talk about Catholicism.
Christianity started with Catholicism. Catholicism was the first one. That was the first group of Christianity. And then the rest broke off from there.
That's what you meant to say?
That's how it's going to start.
Okay, go ahead. Good point.
Thank you.
We're talking about the traditions and cultures. And you don't know about the other religions and their culture, even though they're Christian based, but we don't know about those where we can say for sure the information we're giving is 100% accurate. That's why I want to avoid that.
Okay,
right?
that's fine. Yes.
So, and I'm saying that, I'm stressing that, because for individuals that might wonder, you guys are Catholic, but you always seem like you're attacking the Catholic religion. Are we attacking our Catholic faith?
No,
No.
not in any way.
What are we doing?
We're explaining what we know
Right?
and how the teachings that we have been learning fit in with what we know.
Bingo. And that makes us appreciate, we're showing the appreciation for our Catholic faith, which came because we learn more from the teachings. And the more the teachings, we learn things from the teachings, we got to understand, okay, that's why the Catholic Church looks at things this way. And so then we didn't have to leave and say we're going to go be some other religion, right?
Right,
Part of some other faith. So anyway, so we're not attacking. For anyone that may be thinking, why do you guys keep attacking the Catholic Church? We're not.
Not
We're
at all.
very proud of our faith, and we know they did some things, right? And that's the point. We know they killed people and all that, right? And then other Catholics say, well, other religions did that too. That's not the point. That doesn't make it right.
That's right.
Okay? And so all we're saying is that the more we learn, the more we get to understand why the faith is, what our Catholic faith is the way it is. The Catholic religion is the way it is. So that's why I'm saying stick to that, because we know that very well. Let me put it this way. You know that very well, because the way I was brought up is so different than the way you were brought up.
Yes,
in the
it
Catholic
was.
faith.
Yes, it
It's
was.
really different. So, not saying one is right or one is wrong, even though mine is better.
But there is absolutely no judging here. I just want you to know that.
No comparison whatsoever.
None whatsoever. Why would we compare each other?
No, we wouldn't do that. After all, we're both Catholics.
Okay, so getting back to the topic.
Right, go back to
Being religious, using Catholicism, which is the beginning of Christianity, as an example, there are a lot of traditions that have been, and cultural practices, thank you, that are in the Catholic faith. You know, that when every Sunday you go to Mass, and then you have the sacraments of the church, and you have certain prayers, and you've got novenas and rosaries, and it's a whole huge community filled with a lot of examples that you can turn to for help at any time. And it's also a community where your shortcomings are pointed out to you in hopes that you will turn around and become a better person.
Based on the beliefs and the traditions of the church.
Yes, which I was going to get to.
Okay.
Based on the fact that you are sorry for your sins and you go to the confession and tell the priest about them, and then he tells you what you should do as a penance in return for that. And then also receiving the sacraments to help make you a more holy person full of grace. This is what religious, believing, or what is it? Being religious is to me. And I was raised with that, every day. We'd wake up in the morning and my parents would have us say the morning prayers. And then we'd come home for lunch in the afternoon from school and we'd have to say the afternoon prayers. And then, of course, in the evening, we'd say the evening prayers plus the Holy Rosary. And then Sundays were just Mass all day long because we were heavily involved in the church. So there was a lot that we did that became part of our culture and our family. So that to me is being religious. You're doing all those practices, you're saying all the prayers, but what was missing for me was a real connection to God, to the angels and the saints that were talked about and discussed, because they were held in such high regard. I felt I could not get like that. I could not be that way. I couldn't get to their level. So to me, that's being religious.
Okay, so before we get to maybe that's the end of the shortcomings part there. I know for me, the way we were brought up, of course, still Catholics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had the rosary, we had you had to go to Mass.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with us, it was interesting because in grade school, each grade was assigned a day to go to Mass.
Well, see, you went to Catholic school. I didn't.
Yes. Well, where I come from, if you're a Catholic, you go to a Catholic school. You don't go anywhere else.
We didn't have a Catholic school available to us, so therefore.
So see what I mean about how different it is?
Yes.
And if you're a Catholic, you didn't go to a Catholic school, then you were frowned upon. It's like, what are you doing? You're Catholic. And of course, where I come from, Catholic education was always deemed as the best because, of course, we had Jesuits and they were very good teachers. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, you were assigned a day. And it was always in the morning, like 5 o'clock or 5, I think it was like 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. But it was very early in the morning for us, we were like kids and we had to get up early to go to Mass. And if you didn't go, your teacher was there taking roll call, like to see who showed up. And then once you went to school, you were whipped. You were punished for not going to church for that day, because it's only one day a week they're asking you to go, like during the week. You still have to go on Sunday, and then they're watching you for that too. So you have to go to church at least twice a week. Nothing else. You can go more than that, but at least twice a week. Right? Why are you looking at me like that?
Because as you're speaking, like, man, you were forced to do this, where me, when I was like, from the ages of 12 to like 16, I willingly, during the summers when I didn't have to go to school, I willingly would either ride my bicycle or go with a friend to Holy Mass, like every single day at 6 o'clock in the morning at a Marianite Rite Church, which is still part of the Catholic faith.
That's why my uncle fell in love with you, remember?
Yes.
And then he disowned me and called me a heathen. Then when he found out all these things about it, like, oh,
we became best friends.
You should date her. You date her. I'm like, no, she's just a friend of mine.
And you were being dragged out of bed, kicking and screaming.
Yeah. Well, if you think that was the end of it, then of course we still had, you had to go and do penance, right?
Right.
It's a lot to do that. And I don't recall how often we had, at least once a week we had to do that. And that wasn't
go to
Mass.
confession?
We had to go for confession, right. And I don't recall exactly when during the week we had to do that, but it wasn't during Mass or after Mass. That was a separate thing they had to do. And so after a while, this is how thwarted my thinking was, right? Because I would go for confession, I'm like, I tell the priest, I don't have anything to confess. And they say, yes, you do. I said, no, I don't. They said, all kids are bad. They do bad things. So you have some bad things you've done. And I'm trying to figure, what bad thing did I do? So then I literally started doing bad things so that when I went to confession, I had something to confess. I'll get into fights. Because they told me I have to confess something.
See?
So you see that?
Yes, and here I am. I willingly went every Sunday. It was twice that I went to confession twice in the same Sunday because I had forgotten something. And the priest, each time, it was different priests, they said, "You've already been absolved of your sins no matter what they were. This doesn't count anymore. You don't need to go to confession for this because it already happened in the past. It didn't happen between now and the last confession just an hour ago." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like God knows everything you did, you know?
But now, my uncle, he's hilarious. My mom's brother, when he was alive, he said, yeah, he'd go to confession, he'd get his penance, and the priest would tell him, go say 10 Hail Marys. So he'd go into the pew, make the sign of the cross, and say, Father said, say 10 Hail Marys, 10 Hail Marys, amen. And he'd make the sign of the cross and leave. That's what he told us he would do.
No, but after a while, I started doing the same thing. not that, right? But they said, say like 20 Hail Marys, depending on how bad the sin is. And I would go and I just kneel there and I look, I said, I realized that he can't see me. And he's busy taking more confession. I'm like, okay, I would kneel, do the cross, and then I would leave. I don't even say any Hail Mary, right?
Hail Mary times 20.
And like the first time I did it, the first few times I did it, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be punished. Then I wake up in the morning, everything's fine. I said, oh, I guess I must have been forgiven. So every time I go, I do exactly, I just kneel down, start the cross, and I say amen and get up and leave. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the other part. Then if you talk to like my cousins, they'll tell you about this.
Okay.
In May, that's Mother Mary's month, right?
Yes, uh-huh.
So in the month of May, the entire month of May, every day, right at midday, they lined us up in the schoolyard. And we had to do this procession, right, for Mother Mary. Uh-huh. And it took about an hour. After that, I just despised the whole thing. And then during Lent.
Okay, just to put this into perspective for all of you watching, midday from where my husband grew up in Central America was the hottest time of the day with the sun beaming straight down on you.
Exactly. It's really hot. Mm-hmm. And we're out there and we wear khakis, right? Because that's
long pants.
Uniform, right? It's hot. And so that's one thing. The next thing is during Lent. We're in school, now we have to do the
Stations of the Cross. Oh, right? I didn't even like doing Stations of the Cross.
So we're spending time on this because that's
the
what
culture.
We call the practices, the culture of the Catholic faith, right? But then
the traditions.
The thing about that is the moment I didn't have to go to church anymore, do you think I went?
I think you still went to church.
No.
No?
No! Yeah, I did not go. I would go on Sunday, but
what
not. What
kind of a man did I marry?
No, but not 6 o'clock in the morning. Is what I'm saying,
right? I see, yes.
But on a Sunday, yes, we'd go. Then after a while, we started skipping some Sundays too. We weren't being forced anymore. So that's the bad thing about that. If somebody's forced to do something, and they're not doing it of their free will, then it's not fun. You know, you don't see the benefit of it because you're just kind of going through the motions. Mm-hmm. And so going back to being religious, to me that's being religious. Well, you can be doing something, but there's no meaning behind it for you anymore. You're just going through a routine because you're supposed to do that. It's like your responsibility.
Right, and that's how it got for me when, as I finished high school and went on to college and lived on my own. It was more of a routine for me, more than it was something that I really embraced and wanted to be a part of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then later on, for me, I start to ask questions. Okay, why do I have to do this anyway? You know? Mm-hmm. And then I had a friend that became a priest, Father Lazarus, mm-hmm. who became a cardinal. A cardinal, not a bird, but for people that don't know.
Right, it's a rank in the hierarchy of the religious order.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would turn to him as a kid, and I would ask him, I said, why do we have to do this? And he got to the point where he told me, you know what? There are a lot of questions that the church can't answer. You just have to live by faith. And then as I grew older and I was communicating with him, because by now I'm in college, he's like, they won't give you the answer to that. Okay? You have to find those on your own. It doesn't make you a bad Catholic. And here's a priest telling me this. Mm-hmm. And that's when my eyes got open. And then, of course, you met my uncle. Right. We'd ask him questions, and he would tell us, well, there's some things that the Catholic Church doesn't talk about. But let me share this with you, right? He even gave us some books to read. Mm-hmm. And that's when my eyes really opened and I realized, okay, you don't just follow blindly what you're being told by, in our case, the Catholic Church, because there's more to it than that. And your job to do a really good job in building that communication or relationship with God is to give yourself the opportunity to know that He's there for you and that there is no question in your mind. You know, and you don't have to get defensive when somebody asks you a question about the religion that you've chosen, you know, as your faith, because you understand. See, if you have to get defensive, you know you don't understand.
Right, and I was defensive a lot, majority of the time. So, and I thought I knew my religion, but I couldn't answer questions that people asked me, so that's what started me on my spiritual journey.
So when you said you thought you knew your religion, what do you mean?
Well, I knew the traditions, I knew, you know, the catechism that I was taught and the culture, but when it came down to deep spiritual questions, I'm not able to think of one off the top of my head right now, but I couldn't answer them when I was asked.
Okay, but you're still focused on a question, which if you know the Bible, that just means that you don't know the Bible enough.
I didn't know the Bible
Right.
enough.
But there are people that can recite the Bible. I mean, every verse, every chapter.
Right, but even most people can't answer the questions.
Oh, I see. Okay. So now let's go on to...
Because I would go to the priest or to my parents and ask them, and I would be given a Bible verse, and then the person would say, okay, but that doesn't answer the question. And I'd be like, okay, now what?
And then they get upset most of the time.
And then I would get defensive, like, it's right there, don't you get it, you know? And I didn't even understand.
Right. No, but I'm saying when you ask somebody, I guess you're using someone as an example, but if you ask your parents, for example, and you tell them, no, that doesn't answer my question. What was their response or reaction?
They would start raising their voice,
Exactly,
and they would
right.
get very defensive and try to say, well,
that's enough. And that's enough.
yes.
Because it's not just them that's like that. It's
Right.
anyone that feel that I don't have an answer and you know, why are they doing this? They're not good Catholic. That was you get accused of not being a good Catholic,
Right.
but you don't believe in your faith. And that's not it. You're asking the question so you can better understand and you can believe even more. So that's religion, where
Yes.
you're following traditions, right? And you feel that by understanding those and by being able to read the Bible and then recite it back to somebody, you're close to God at that point. And then you are infallible with your faith, right? Because
Right.
you're like, no, you can't tell me there's no God. What's spirituality?
To me, spirituality is someone who is working on making sure that they have that connection with the divine. No matter how they go about getting it, they want to be connected to the divine so that they can have access to all knowledge and get back to, you know, why they're truly here, because they're a soul on this planet.
But I think that people that follow the tradition, the things we just talked about earlier, they're trying to do the same thing. I think that they're also trying to form that connection. They really believe that they formed the connection with God. Who knows if they have.
Right, but people who are spiritual won't just stick with a religion. They will go and seek answers, and they'll go to different places. They'll look at different religions. They'll look at different philosophers or whatever else might come up to seek the answer for what their question may be.
See, I see it differently.
Okay.
The way I see it is as someone that wants to be spiritual or someone that is spiritual lives what they're learning. They implement what they're learning. They're individuals. For example, Padre Pio. I believe Padre Pio was very spiritual.
Yes.
All right. Mother Teresa. Oh, but then they know the Bible and they follow the traditions of the Catholic Church.
But they also had a deep spiritual connection with God.
So how did they get it?
Exactly. How did they get it?
By living what they learned from the Bible. If you notice, Mother Teresa went and she served communities, right? And she taught people the things that she knew by example.
Yes.
She didn't just preach to them. She showed them what to do,
And they also acted out of complete unconditional love.
right?
Which
And
is-
now, Padre Pio, here he was, he had all these things going on with him, right?
Right?
The bleeding, what do they call
It's
it?
called stigmata.
The stigmata, right? But even with that, he never complained about it. And he didn't, well, he would not be allowed to commercial life, right? Because it's a Catholic church.
Right.
But despite all that, he tried to show people, I mean, there were healings that took place, things like that. And so by doing that, he showed people the power of God, that God can heal them, right? Or
Right.
through God, they can get healed.
Right.
So again, you're living by example. So to me, even if you know the Bible inside out, and you can answer all these questions that you might pose to somebody, to me that doesn't mean anything if when I look at the way you're living, it doesn't match what you're saying.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
So in the Bible it says what? Treat everyone the way we want to be treated. Not like that, but something similar, right?
Right,
What's
right.
it called? The golden rule. Okay, well, and I've seen this happen. Okay, so if you're in church and then you come out of church and right away you start complaining about the person that was sitting beside you, that they were making so much noise, right? Or the way they dressed was ugly or
Or
inappropriate.
their kids were disruptive.
Exactly, the kids were disrupted. Then how is that living with unconditional love? How is that treating someone the way you want to be treated?
It's not, because they're judging already. They just left where they were supposed to be, in a place of complete unconditional love, and that's what they're being taught, hopefully. And now they're going and they're judging someone.
That, to me, that's what spirituality expects, that you live according to what you learned, you implement it.
Got it.
See, that's spirituality. It's not about going and searching all over the place. You could still be a Buddhist or a Catholic or a Hindu person or whatever religion, a Muslim, right? However, what you're doing is you're implementing your faith. You know, if in your faith you're told that you should love someone unconditionally, you don't judge, and they all say that, as for example,
Right.
and that's what you do. You know, no matter how someone behaves, you don't judge that person because you know it's just a behavior. It's a temporary choice that somebody's made. That's not really them.
Right.
That's spirituality. You know? I'm not impressed with people that can quote the Bible inside out. I'm not even able to do that, like chapter this and verse this. It amazes me when they do it. It's like, wow, that's very impressive. But despite all that, I'm looking at their demeanor, how they treat their fellow brothers and sisters. You know, are they living by that example of what the prophets have set for us? And if you can do that, if you can not get stressed or get bothered by anything that's going on around you, because you know you're taken care of by God, that's spirituality. You know, if mass consciousness is talking about all kinds of things, and you're not moved, you know, and no matter what happens, you have nothing negative to say about it, that's spirituality. You don't have to know the Bible or anything from the Torah or any other biblical or any other religious book, right, that has the teachings of that prophet. You don't have to know anything from there. All you have to know is, this is how I'm supposed to live, so I'm going to live this way. And that's where people think that they have to be part of a church to be spiritual or to be close to God. No. All you have to do is implement what God has asked you to do, and you're on your way.
Well, some individuals want to be a part of a church because they feel like they can learn those things from that church.
Well, they can, but now they have to implement it,
Right.
to me. And that's just my opinion.
Right. Okay, well, I think that answers our discussion here of having beliefs in, or what is it, being religious versus being spiritual. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. We'll make sure to address them. Remember to subscribe and like this video. Join the Facebook group 190 Vision to connect with others on the same journey. Get help by visiting our website 190vision.com. Support the 190 Vision mission by clicking on the donate button, which is at the bottom of each page of our website.